Hey, Travels with Dottie here with my full-time retired RV life. And today I'm going to try something a little different, see if this flies with people that follow me, if you like this. But I thought about, I was thinking about the fact that I changed domicile, my residency from Nevada to New Mexico, and people had a lot of questions about, like, why did you do that, and et cetera, et cetera. And also, people had a lot of specific questions about the legality of obtaining residency as an RVer. And that got me thinking about things I'd seen in the news. So I did a deeper dive into a couple of things. And the first thing that I was curious about, I had heard, well, if you don't know this, a really well-known domicile target for RVers is South Dakota. They've had very lax standard. You could drive to South Dakota in your RV, stay one night in an RV park, and become a resident and get your plates, get your license, register to vote. I think you have to come back every couple of years to renew registration, things of that nature. But I'm not 100% positive about that. And that's not the important part of that. What I started hearing was that local communities started raising concerns. And these are the concerns that they're raising. It's around eligibility for voting. If you are a resident, you become an eligible voter. And the concern wasn't for national elections. It wasn't even for state elections. It was for local elections. They were concerned that if hundreds, if not thousands of RVers that aren't really physically part of the community start voting in local elections like school boards and county commissioners and things of that nature, that didn't seem fair to them. So their voices became louder and louder until it attracted the attention of the state legislature. And indeed, they introduced a bill, House Bill 1066 in South Dakota in January of this year. Let me make sure I'm right about that. January 22nd. And it went all the way through the process and got signed by the governor March 31st, was signed by the governor, not March 31st, 2025, so not that long ago. So what's changed? What's different? And I think from my reading quite a bit. I'm going to read you the summary of the bill. The bill amends existing laws regarding residency requirements for voter registration in South Dakota. It clarifies resident is defined as an individual who maintains, this is important, a fixed permanent dwelling where they live and usually sleep for at least 30 consecutive days. Then it goes on to say, hey, it's okay if you leave, but you have to have the intention of coming back. But the important things are, it's no longer one day, it's 30 days, and it's 30 consecutive days. And I'm going to assume, I'm not a lawyer, that an RV would not be considered a fixed permanent dwelling. Like I say, I'm not a lawyer, but that seems like pretty specific wording for me. So I think that it's possible, and we'll have to hear anecdotally with RVers that go up there and try the old way. If they try to stay in an RV park now and do the 30 consecutive days, which, by the way, is Nevada residency requirements. When I did it, was a Nevada resident. An RV was okay, but I had to stay in an RV park for 30 consecutive days. And basically you have to go into the DMV with a bill or a statement from the RV park saying you paid, this is how much you paid, and these are the dates. So that's what I actually did in Nevada. Time will tell if this is... We'll see, and I'll keep track of that. And if I hear reports from other RVers that they were unable to do what people have done in the past, I'll talk about that in at least one of my videos. The other thing, and forgive me, it's like George hears me talking. George is my cat, by the way. And George immediately runs to the litter box and starts making noise. So I've long ago given up stopping the video or trying to take the noise out. I surrender to my cat, George. All right. Another thing that's important, and this happened in Arizona. And this doesn't affect everybody, but it could affect you. It has to do with living in your RV full time in bankruptcy. And as a general rule, in most instances, your home is protected if you file bankruptcy. And in this case, there was a case that went to the state Supreme Court, and the question was, does the RV count as a residence like a mobile home does? So this is from 12news.com in Arizona. And I'm just going to read from the article here. It takes less time for Mary Drummond to list the states she and her husband haven't been to in their motorhomes than to list the ones that have. We haven't been through maybe 10 states, so we've probably been through 38. The 2017 Tiffin RV was a home for the couple from the time they bought it in 2018. It was their only residence. A place not to just go on adventures from, but to live in full time, at least until the Arizona Supreme Court decided this February that legally it wasn't their home. Motor homes, despite the name, were vehicles, the court decided, not homes, not by legal definition. This is relevant not just for Drummonds who filed for bankruptcy in 2022, but it's a massive change to Arizona bankruptcy law and the safety people in Arizona bankruptcy proceedings could find in motorhomes. The Drummonds have lost their home, so the next person in Arizona who declares bankruptcy while living solely in an RV. This goes back to something called the homestead exemption, the idea that you shouldn't lose your home if you're going through bankruptcy. The exemption protects the value of a home up to a certain dollar amount from being seized by creditors. In Arizona, we have a very good homestead protection law that protects your residents, says Ken Neely, Arizona consumer bankruptcy attorney, who was not part of the case we're talking about. When the Drummonds filed their bankruptcy in Arizona, they claimed two primary assets, a 2021 Nissan and a 217 motorhome, their home. So the question in this case is whether or not the motorhome, which the Drummonds owned, was the same thing as a mobile home. Drake was directly involved in the Drummonds case, representing the trustee, the person or group whose duty it is to dole out a person's assets to their creditors. The trustee just didn't feel that the statute provided for an exemption for a motorhome under the definition of a motorhome. In the 2017 Tiffin might have been Drummond's home, but it might not qualify for protections under Arizona's homestead. The Supreme Court agreed to review the case at Dake's request. The answer for the Drummonds was not good. The Arizona Supreme Court issues decision in February. Quote, we answer the certified question by holding that a motorhome in which a person over 18 years of age resides in does not qualify for the Arizona homestead exemption under ARS 33-1101A3, the majority opinion stated. Ruling caused a fundamental shift for consumer advocates like Neely. I'll say we've filed cases in the past where we protected the motorhome with homestead exemption, and in these cases, it's clear the debtors are using their motorhomes as homes. They're not trying to game the system. They live in their motorhome. Prior cases did not allow for a motorhome to be protected as a home, but those cases were not challenged before the state Supreme Court. The majority finds that mobile home in statute plainly refers to a dwelling that is not intended to be moved once placed and physically attached to the property. The majority wrote. And I'm going to say an aside here, because one of the things I wondered about as I was reading this is a trailer, a travel trailer, a motorhome. And of course, it's not a motorhome. There's no motor in it. It's a recreational vehicle, but it's a travel trailer. But this interpretation would be bad news for a travel trailer because it says It's not, it refers to a dwelling that is not intended to be moved once placed and physically attached to the property. That's a mobile home, like a single or a double wide they're talking about. Something with wheels on it and a hitch isn't going to qualify here. And I'm sure this is going to include, and this will affect many people, park models. Park models, by definition, have wheels and a hitch. As such, my colleagues conclude the term cannot include a self-propelled motorhome because it's intended to be readily movable and not tied to the land in which it sits in any significant way. Now here, it says self-propelled, so I think you maybe again, you need to be a lawyer to really interpret that. The roll of the RV doesn't matter, the court decided. The fact that it rolls does. Now, the fact that it rolls, but they said in the opinion, self-propelled. A trailer's not self-propelled. I think they missed the entire point, Drummond said. Just because you live in an RV doesn't mean you're homeless. It means you're houseless. In her dissent, Vice Chief Justice Ann Scott said, the court has consistently found that the purpose of the homestead exemption is to ensure that individuals whose property is subject to foreclosure are not rendered homeless. She added, in other words, whether or not a home has a motor, the homestead exemption fulfills the purpose by protecting the family's interest in that home. The majority opinion said that any changes to the exemption would need to come from the legislature. So the question is, will the legislature change the law? Arizona's recently passed in 2022 more protections for people in debt. It's unclear whether a change to protect motorhomes would have widespread support or may include specifications like a minimum amount of time the vehicle has to be in Arizona titled and registered in the state. So we don't know what's going on now. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm thinking about this. I'm going to pause and I'm going to search to see if there's any new legislation in Arizona on RVs in the homestead exemption. Hang on just a second. Folks, I'm really glad I did this because guess what? Senate Bill 1540 was just finalized into law just a couple of weeks ago. It was on May 2nd. It was, and here's the change to the language. In the homestead exemption for the state of Arizona, where it says a forced sale not exceeding $400, any one of the following are exempt from bankruptcy. One, the person's interest in real property and one compact body which exists in a dwelling house which the person resides, so a home, or the person's interest in the condominium or cooperative in which the person resides, and what used to be, it just said a mobile home. Well, this legislation has changed that. It added to it, and I'm going to read the new language that's been signed by the governor. A mobile home, park model trailer, motorhome, travel trailer, fifth wheel trailer, houseboat, manufactured home, or other form or shelter in which the person resides, plus the land in which the shelter is located. A victory for full-time RVers. That's amazing. I haven't heard about that at all, but that's something that you need to think about. If your main asset is your RV and you live in it, and you're an Arizona resident, and you file for bankruptcy, as of the 2nd of this month, your home was protected. Before that, it was not. So that's really great news. I'm pretty excited about this, that I discovered that. And I'm actually reading from the marked up bill from the legislature, and I went into tracking and read the formal tracking on. It was introduced in February 10th, 2025, in committee on 3/24, and passed on 5/2, and signed, enacted, adopted on 5/2/25. The sponsor of the bill, a Republican named Frank Carroll, I'm very excited about that. That's really great news. Well, tell me if you like this kind of segment, this kind of video, and if I overwhelming here. Well, one thing, the views will tell me whether you like this or not, but also your comments will tell you. If the views are low and you're telling me, nah, this isn't my cup of tea, and not viewing it or exiting out of it quickly is a way of telling me that too. So you really don't need to say so in the comments, but you're welcome to. Yes, I'm sensitive to criticism, but in this case, I'm looking for people to tell me this isn't what I look for when I go to your channel, because that's what I don't want to do. I want to be predictable and reliable of the kind of content that you expect when you click on to Travels with Dottie. So let me know. I'm excited. I'm excited about it. I hope you are too. Take care.